Okay, thank you so much, Miriam, and welcome everyone. My name is Josie Badger, and I am the co-director of the RAISE Center. Along with this list of wonderful staff that I work with, we all are certainly happy that you are joining us here today. Go ahead. So as Miriam was saying, this is the makings of a beautiful relationship, vocational rehab and parent training and information center. Go ahead. So we have presenters from across the country, and I am thoroughly excited to be introducing these three individuals. One of the individuals is from Vocational Rehab, one individual is the director of their parent center, and one is one of our RSA Parent Center directors. And so we have a great variety of individuals speaking about the different relationships and working together between VR and parent centers. Go ahead. So this webinar will discuss the relationships between the Idaho Parent Center and their vocational rehab, and also Missouri, and how they have worked across the state with their vocational rehab to develop different parent centers throughout the state. Go ahead. And Jessica? So this is our first, I think, only poll question. Just so that we all kind of know who's out there, we would really appreciate if you would answer the following question. Who is out there? Who are you? So parent center staff member, RSA PTI staff member, or RAP member, which are our RSA PTIs, a parent of an individual with disability, a youth or young adult with disability, a service provider, educator, TA provider, or other. So we'll go ahead and select.
Okay, I'm going to close the poll.
Okay. Okay, well, that's very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate all of you joining us. And I love that there are quite a few individuals who are not from parent centers. That actually makes it so much more diverse. I think we're hitting a broader audience. Next slide. Okay, before we jump to Idaho, I just want to give you all a little history. This past spring, we had done a webinar on how to work with vocational rehab, and it really was a very educational session. But from that webinar came the idea of let's talk about the promising practices and very beneficial relationships between voc rehab and our parent centers. And I genuinely believe that through the Rehab Service Administration's grant to fund RAISE, which is us, and the RSA PTIs, we have further developed relationships in other states that previously did not have a strong relationships with voc rehab. And so today we're going to be kind of seeing the two different sides. Idaho is a state that does not have an RSA grant, but has developed a wonderful relationship with VR. While Missouri does have RSA funding and has developed also an incredible program. And so I hope that through today's webinar, we will be able to look at how to grow and different ideas of relationships between the two partners. And after the Idaho presentation, we will be making it possible for all of you to ask questions. So, and we will also do that after Missouri. So please, if you have a question during either session, please ask it as soon as you think of it, and we will, at the end of their session, we will open the questions up and answer them just and then at the very end, we will do one more. So I appreciate everything. I'm going to turn it over to our new Idaho friends, Angela and Alison.
Great, thank you so much, Josie, and everyone for being here. I'm Angela Lindig, and I'm the Executive Director of the Parent Training and Information Center, Idaho Parents Unlimited here in Idaho. We are the statewide training PTI for Idaho. I know there are other states that have more than one, but we're the only one for our state. And I'm joined by...
I'm Alison Lowenthal, and I'm the Transition Coordinator for Voc Rehab. Just to give you a little bit of my background, is I actually come from the education side. So prior to being the transition coordinator that oversees pre-employment transition services for the state of Idaho, I had been the secondary transition coordinator for the State Department of Education. And so my background includes education and Voc Rehab.
And I think that just to get us started, Alison and I have worked together in a lot of different capacities over the years. I've been at the Parent Center for 9 years now, and between your work with the State Department of Education and then now at VR for the last 7?
I will be going on my 9th year as well. 9
years. Okay, well, wow. We've been doing this for a while together. So we've been able to really forge a good relationship, and out of that have come a number of different projects, and so that's what we're going to talk about. So if we could go to the next slide.
So some of our strategies of trying to really bring together partnerships between our Parent Center and Voc Rehab actually started with one of our first projects, as Angela mentioned, that we worked on. And what this project is we have a council here in Idaho. It's called the Idaho Interagency Council on Secondary Transition. This council was created long before Angela and I moved into our positions, so it did have a really solid, good foundation. When I moved to Idaho and started in my position at the State Department of Education, I took over leading this council and making sure that this council stayed afloat. And so through the council, and part of the reason I'm bringing this up is it kind of leads to choices that we've made and decisions that we made that has developed such a strong partnership between our Parent Center and VR. But this council included representation from all across the state, which included State Department of Education, district educators, Voc Rehab, our Parent Center, our Council for Developmental Disabilities, Department of Labor, Juvenile Corrections, Adult Corrections, our Council for Blind and Visual Impairments, our Idaho Educational Services for the Deaf and Blind, and I'm sure I'm missing many, many other people who have, higher education.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Higher education is a huge component of this committee. But this council meets 4 times a year and really discusses and works on statewide planning around secondary transition. And so through this council, it was determined that we were going to make suggestions for the state of how we would move forward with state planning. So one of the big things out of this council is we determined that we were going to send a team to the NTAC, which is the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition Institute, to do actual statewide team planning.
So the NTAC Annual Planning Institute, Alison was able to invite me to attend that, I think 4 years ago for the first time. And we really put together a wonderful team that included VR, the State Department of Ed, and representation from special ed directors from 3 districts in our state. And that team has really just benefited all of us in so many different ways. And even as Alison transitioned out of her position at the State Department and into VR, I think in fact that only strengthened all of the work that we're doing. And as the Parent Training and Information Center, to be a part of that, to be invited to that, it has really helped us strengthen our relationships, not just with VR and the State Department of Ed, but working within these districts. We've had an awful lot of wonderful work that's come out of our goal setting. And it helped me as a director of a PTI realize how many other states don't have these types of relationships and how beneficial this is to the kids in our state and families.
And I would say from myself, from my perspective, both at the State Department of Ed as well as from VR, what I have noticed in my past number of years working at the state level is the people who are often not at the table are the parents. Mm-hmm. The people whose opinions and goals and what they want don't always have a voice in what we're trying to do and trying to say. And because of that, what I've seen as the backlash has been lack of parents wanting to work collaboratively with school districts, lack of parents wanting to even sign their sons or daughters up for voc rehab. And so really felt that there was this high need that we needed to model something at a state level of how our relationships are built and work together in order for that to pass through into the community, for the community to see the importance of why is it that we want to do this? Why is it that we want to have these collaborative relationships? And so as Angela mentioned before, that has been a huge thing with building that parent-centered relationship with the school districts, because I don't know, some of you in different states may experience this, but some states I think see the parent center as an adversary to school districts, whereas in Idaho, that is not at all the way that the parent center is viewed by either districts or voc rehab or the State Department of Ed by that matter. They are really seen as, no, they are a partner in development of our systems and what we're doing and moving forward. And I truly believe that so much of this partnership has been created through this interagency council, where they were brought in, they had a voice, they were a part of that team, but then even more so through the MPACT Institute, because they are helping us to develop goals as outside agency people for moving forward in what we're doing.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, we've been able to build more trusting relationships with both families and the districts through some of the trainings and work that we've created together. And even in Idaho, we've had districts that have felt that working with the parent center might be problematic for whatever experiences that they've had in the past. And we've together, Alison and I and these other districts have put together trainings that really do focus on family engagement in the transition process. And that has been, and not just in the transition process, I'll go back, we actually even created a document and guidance on transition activities that promote post-secondary employment and the skills needed that start much younger. What, kindergarten? Pre-K. And so so we're really focusing on this from the whole school timeline for a family, so that they're prepared to work with, have their student enroll with VR and other opportunities outside of high school.
And the document that Angela is referring to was a document that I worked on with another parent center parent to develop a really family-friendly document for promoting employment starting in employment activities starting in pre-K. So really building that idea, and it was also the Council for Developmental Disabilities played a huge part in building this document as well. But it really is about building up the expectation to work from when students with this, or children with disabilities have not even entered school yet. But what does that look like, and how is that really taught through a very family-friendly way? At the end of this, we can show you where any of our resources are. So for example, we have this document available for anyone who would like to have it. But again, it was all collaboration, and that came out of that MPACT Institute, because the development of that piece of material that Angela is referring to was one of the things that we had on our goal from the MPACT Institute.
The other thing that we developed that came out of that was the new strength-based IEP training workshop and webinar. In fact, I just delivered that the last hour around that lead to better transitions to adulthood. And so really focusing on student strengths early on, and again throughout their entire school timeline, that help them become better self-advocates, and families remain engaged through that transition age where we see so much disengagement happening otherwise. So, and then
we also are forming an Idaho Institute, which I will go over in just a minute. Wanted to just kind of go through other strategies, and then we'll go back to that.
And then finally, we have partnered. The Idaho Parents Unlimited is somewhat uniquely poised in that not only are we the PTI, we have been the VSA affiliate for the last many years, 20 years. And VSA used to stand for Very Special Arts. For those of you that are not familiar, it is a program run through the Kennedy Center, and we now we continue to do the programming as a contractor along with some other resources that help fund arts and special education.
And just for those of you who don't know, if you're not familiar with pre-employment transition services, PRES is the acronym that is being used under WIOA and RSA, but that acronym stands for pre-employment transition services.
And so as the Parent Center, for our training of youth to improve their outcomes for education and employment and independent living, we worked with VR to develop a contract that used arts and special education as a vehicle for those pre-employment transition services and employment skill building. So, and we'll talk about that after we talk about the Institute.
Next slide, please. So the other thing that's always been important to us is trying to think about, through our partnership, who are our target audience in the development of all of the things that we're doing. And so we felt it was important to share who we truly feel in all of the work that we're doing, who our target audience is when it comes to training, when it comes to services. Obviously, our first target audience is students with disabilities and transition to adulthood. My entire life in VR revolves around providing those pre-employment transition services to students, which are students who are 15 through 21. And so that really is our #1 audience. The next is really families and parents, and what does that look like and how do we support them? We also support educators and administrators, VR counselors. As a VR person, our community members and businesses are also very, very important in this engagement. And we'll talk a little bit about what our Parent Center is doing for our Institute, trying to bring in some more community engagement as well for that. And then also higher education, because we are wanting to promote post-secondary education for students with disabilities. And so they're a member of that target audience as well.
And I just like to point out that this slide is my favorite because this is my daughter's final transition IEP meeting, in which she's somewhat nonverbal, and yet she was there to lead her own IEP and her transition to adulthood with an incredible team of people, as you can see, a very strength-based approach. So love that one. We're ready to move on because she's awesome. Next slide, please.
So now to talk a little bit about our Idaho Transition Institute. So as we said, it was during our NTAC planning that the transition team determined that we really wanted to have an institute for ourselves in Idaho that models the National Institute. And what that is really bringing in district teams that look at their own district goal planning for the state around the areas of transition. And so through going to our own institute, this became one of our goals. So what we have done is we've been spending the last year, we will be holding this institute at the end of November, but we have been working as a very, very collaborative interagency group to develop this institute, which is extremely, extremely exciting for me, because not only do we have all of these partners that you see at the bottom of the page, just to go over some of the acronyms. ICBVI is the Idaho Commission for Blind and Visual Impairments. They're our sister VR agency. ICDD is the Idaho Council for Developmental Disabilities. IESDB is Idaho Educational Services for the Deaf and Blind. And then the rest of them, you can kind of read who those people are. But what's really exciting, not only do we have this number of individuals participating in the planning of the Institute, but Almost every single one of these groups is also giving financial resources in order to put on this institute. One of the ways that we're looking at running this institute is every district that chooses to attend will have a VR counselor that will be attending as well to be a part of their team planning, so we can really build those connections and those collaborations. This is our first year holding this type of institute, so we're kind of taking baby steps. But our plan is, because we do have a plan in place for making sure that this institute continues on. So year 2, we're going to do the institute regionally, so we're going to take it out to the different communities. If you're not familiar, Idaho is an extremely large state and extremely rural. If you hammered down our mountains, we would be bigger than Texas, but yet we're still considered frontier. And so we want to bring it out to our regions. And our hope is when we bring it out to our regions, we can include more parent partnerships in attending that institute as well. So we're really, really excited that we have a number of agencies that have come together that have really put their teeth into saying, this is important for Idaho, and this is something important that we want to move forward. But also the fact that we've kept in mind that we can't lose parent voice, that we want to make sure as we move forward that our district transition teams includes parent voice as well, so we can continue to build and share those. And then I'll let Angela talk a little bit about her community engagement through this.
So, well, first, also, it's important to point out that all of my army of 8 people, my parent education coordinators who are parents, will also be in attendance at the Institute to offer an added layer of resources and support to the districts that are coming, because at the end of the day, there are still a lot of districts. I think we have 171 or 173 districts currently in the state, and many people don't know that there is a parent training and information center, and how we can help them in their districts as part of these teams as a PTI, but then also helping them identify parents in their districts that could be part of those regional institutes, really involving that parent voice. So one of the things that we've also done here is we've tried to, for the Institute, we've really, my staff has done quite a bit of outreach to state businesses and other, all around the state to participate in the Institute itself, to have a table, sponsor, but also to get to know that these services and agencies exist for students, and then also to help the districts know who are the employers in their area, who is participating.
And also from the VR perspective, in the VR side from that, it's really trying to say, let's bring in these employers so we know what industry needs, and we know what industry wants, and what their expectation of our programs are that we're building with our transition age students. How are we making sure we're preparing them for what our businesses and industry requires of them? So really trying to make it a collaboration in that. The other final thing that we're doing that's a little bit different with this institute is we're bringing in a number of people from higher education that are current students still in college. And so the 2 groups that we targeted is we targeted students who are going to get their degree to become facilitators. We have each of our district teams for this institute have a facilitator that facilitates their group. So we targeted college students that plan to be facilitators so they can get trained by NTAC, national partners, on how to do a facilitation, but then actually work with the districts to facilitate their team planning time for the institute, which is really kind of new and exciting. The other additional thing is we're bringing in pre-service teachers, both general and special education teachers, to help assist as part of the institute, where not only will they be able to meet district personnel, but they will be able to meet the people in industry, kind of see what their expectations are, but really kind of try to grow those teachers as a part of building a solid foundation for our educational system for students with disabilities in Idaho.
Next slide. And this is just the mission that we created as a state planning team for transition entirely, not just for the Institute, but this is the mission that we've got, that will work together to ensure that students have the skills, knowledge, and opportunities to choose their own transition pathways. Exceptional individuals prepared for independent transitions, choosing successful futures. All right, next slide. Okay, so in this case, now I wanted to talk about, and I'll try to not take up too much time. These are just a couple of examples. So you're seeing some photos here. This is from that work of art program that I explained, talked about just a minute ago, as our being both the PTI and having our arts and special education programming. And so what we've done is we piloted this several years ago. We liked the outcomes, and we ultimately found a way to develop a contract with VR here at the PTI. And we have opportunities for up to about 12 students at a time to go through a 15 to 20 hour work experience, paid work experience, using the arts, a lead teaching artist, VR counselors, and educators and businesses. So these students will create in collaborative teams either a unique piece of art or artwork that is commissioned essentially by a corporate client. And so this first slide that you're seeing here are students working together up in Coeur d'Alene. They worked at they ended up doing an amazing presentation, and they were featured as part of Coeur d'Alene's monthly downtown open art walk, I think is what it's called. And so they were held at the Emerge Gallery. Amazing group of students, fantastic outcomes. There are the VR counselors up there were phenomenal to work with and loved the program. It was the first, we had so many kids, youth, register for this that we ended up with a wait list, and we're about to embark on a second round in October in this same region. So,
and one of the things from the VR side and the perspective that we see as such a positive is, first of all, we've got community engagement. Because these students are commissioning a corporate piece of art, they're engaging the community businesses through that process. I'll let Angela talk a little bit about HP in a minute, because I think that that's been a huge one, but it's really brought business into that. It also falls right in line with pre-employment transition services, in that students are having to work on self-advocacy skills, because they're needing to make sure that they know how to advocate for themselves on a piece on employment, because they do have to decide together through listening to the employer what the employer really wants. And so they have to advocate when they believe their idea is strong and what they're doing, but then also learn how to really problem solve and become a team. They also, as Angela said, they have a teaching artist on board, so they are providing work readiness training right there while they're working on the piece of art. And then they're providing it's really more of, an internship type work-based, paid work experience, where students are seeing the benefit from working as a group and working hard together, and then being able to have that as a paid work experience. And so it falls directly in line with pre-employment transition services for the VR side as well.
Okay, next slide. We're almost wrapped up here. So these pictures on this slide are from one of our work of art rounds here in the Boise area, and the corporate client was HP. I don't know, HP used to be Hewlett Packard, but then they split, and so as to really confuse things, now there's Hewlett Packard and there's HP. So this was done with HP. The HP team of employees there worked with the students, and they supplied them with all this old technology parts and had them use their phrase of reinvent, and created artwork that remains on display at HP today, prominently in their main office. HP is one of Idaho's largest employers, by the way. So this became, I think, one of the most exciting things about this project was having these HP employees come in and work directly with the students we realized at that moment that as things transpired, that we were not just offering pre-employment skills training to students, we were offering employer readiness skills for employers to see the possibilities of working with students with disabilities and realizing that the opportunities are limitless.
And since the end of this project, HP went out of their way to actually contact VR, so not the other way around, but HP contacted VR about trying to develop a new employee recruitment program and process to recruit persons with disabilities for their workforce. And so I truly believe it was this project that really kind of opened the eyes of, as Angela said, one of our largest employers in the state, to an amazing workforce that's just waiting, you know, to work for them. And so that has just been truly exceptional as well.
And I have a number of other stories that I could tell, but I know that we're probably out of time on our end. I just think that the relationship between the PTI and VR does not just sit with Alison and myself. It is truly an organizational relationship. So it's not one of these that would just fall apart if one of us were not in our positions. Thankfully, we have relationships built across our different organizations with many different people. And that, I think, is, along with the other partners that you mentioned in the beginning, and as well as our Institute partners, there's really no end to the kinds of work that we're going to be able to do together in the future. And it's really exciting for how this is turning out for both business, families, and students, and all of us. So it's great stuff. So if you have any questions now or later, feel free to contact either of us. And then one more slide, I think. Did you want to wrap it up with this?
Just really, you know, we see this as an educational opportunity for students. I mean, I was very excited to be able to work on pre-employment transition services and be able to have VR be able to offer students with so many opportunities to educate themselves to become better prepared for employment. And so I really think that, you know, this time and where we're at, this is the time when we need to be building those relationships with families with VR, because it's kind of an amazing opportunity. So with that, next slide.
Which I think are just our logo.
And just thank you. And as they said, we are happy to take any questions now or at the end of the webinar.
Yes, we do have 4 questions, and the first one is for all the panelists from the introduction. Karen Peck Ivy asks, is either state a local control state?
Idaho is most definitely a local control state.
Okay. Jen Cole has a 3-part question. The first part is, how does this partnership intersect with your state special education advisory panel?
I actually sit, this is Angela. Oh, you do too. We both do.
We both do. We both sit on our state advisory panel.
That's right. I'm like, who's at the meeting? So we both participate on the special education advisory panel. We have shared, obviously, the Institute and the work that we do, and most of the people many of the people who are part of the Interagency Council on Secondary Transition may also participate on we call it our SEEP, on the SEEP. And so I don't.
As of now, I will say the goal direction of our state advisory panel, special ed advisory panel, has not been secondary transition. We have been a little bit more focused on literacy and providing feedback on literacy as well as on our parent survey. Those have been more of the goals that have been tackled by our state advisory panel the last couple of years. But at the same time, yes, I am the VR representation for the state panel, and Angela is the parent representation. But again, as Angela said, it's not Angela and I that's doing it, but we are a member of that, and we're very well versed in what our SEEP is doing.
Okay. The second question is, I am curious about how you invite others who are outside of special ed and disability to look at their role in improving post-secondary outcomes for students with disabilities?
So that's been something I've been trying to tackle a little bit, and I don't know exactly. I hope I'm hitting the right audience of what the question is about. But I have done some work with developing materials for general education teachers, as well, for being able to be included in a part of the transition process, as well as how to work with students with disabilities through the transition process. I also do significant amount of work with our institutes of higher education on promoting promoting and creating programs that are sorry, I'm blanking on the word, but that are integrative. Thank you. Integrative programs that students are working with students with disabilities and general ed students. Please, if I did not get that question right.
Well, I'll add to it actually. So one of the other things that we've done here as the PTI is we've contracted with our State Department of Education under the last state professional development grant around scaling up response to intervention. And that was done with 13 school districts that participated, most of whom were not in special education, as being a school-wide approach towards education, and really giving them an introduction to the Parent Training and Information Center and what we can do for all students and all families. And that also allowed us to sort of tap into this underserved audience of students who are on 504 plans.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that. So VR has also been trying to do some outreach for students on receiving 504 services. It's been a little bit of a barrier. I have presented at a number of career tech ed conferences, as well as conferences directed for school counselors. We've seen a little bit of movement because of that, but not as much movement as we would like to see with serving that population. So that is something I'm still looking at. I'm actually presenting on Thursday at our federal programs with the State Department of Education to kind of talk about the benefits of voc rehab. So hoping to get some of those right people in the room that hear the message that are those students working, who are on 504s.
All right, we have 2 more questions, but I do not want to cut into Debbie's time, so we're going to move ahead with Debbie and then get back to the questions at the end, because we don't want to go over and take everybody's precious time.
Thank you so much.
I'm the executive. Can y'all hear me? Okay, next slide.
Yes, we hear you, Debbie.
Okay. So we do have an RSA funded project, and it's called Stellar, and it stands for Supporting Transition to Engaged Lives by Linking Agency Resources. And really we focus on youth ages 14 to 26 and their families to create some partnerships and networks around our state of Missouri, and I'll talk about those. As well as we have transition volunteers, so actually mentors who work directly with families and youth to support them through the transition process to adult life. Next slide. So what is a regional transition network? They're community stakeholders in areas of employment, independent living, and education. And truly, I always say it's anybody who comes together with a like mind, who really wants to support individuals with disabilities or youth with disabilities and their families to transition into independent living and adult life. And one of our key players, of course, is Vocational Rehabilitation. They're a key member of our regional transition networks, and I'll explain later how we work together to partner and reach our families. And then again, we have transition mentors. So we develop a local and sustainable work group focused on employment and independent living, as well as creating partnerships. And so I'll talk about some of those in detail as we go. Next slide. So within these networks, and I'll show you a map here shortly, we identify current effective practices and community resources and services in the local area, and we call this resource mapping. By doing that, we identify barriers and gaps and the services that are related to in these network areas, and it could be one county, it can be several counties, so maybe that the Independent Living Center serves. And also through these action plans, so we identify the barriers, we create an action plan, and then collectively these transition networks work together to eliminate what they've assessed to be the barriers for transition from high school to adult life for our youth with disabilities and their families. And then we also, through that, will disseminate the information about employment options and best practices in the region to families, youth with disabilities, and other organizations and agencies. Okay, next slide. So this is how our networks are divided up. As you can see, they're divided up regionally. And so it can be maybe one county, like up in the pink area in the top part, or it could be a couple of counties. Down south, southwest part of the state, it's several counties. Some of us have been around a little bit longer than others in our networks, and we hope to create sustainable networks that will go on and reach out. We've had other people join us too, so sometimes our counties expand. You can see that we have some more work to do. We are in our we will begin our final year of our RSA project here soon, but we will continue to grow and expand. That's what we're looking at. Currently, we have 18 networks throughout our state, and then, yeah, as folks reach out to us, we will actually move on and create more networks. Next slide. So just some of the things that we've been able to do through our networks is provide in-person transition to adult life trainings. So that may be on self-determination, leadership, and what we do is we have events around the state. Each network identifies what their needs are, what their barriers are, what their goals are, and what they'd like to work on. And so what they found is a lot of people just don't know about each other. What are the supports and the services that are available? And so with VR absolutely being part of our networks, a major focus is on employment and education beyond high school, right? Our whole adult life. So what they do is a lot of times they'll host events, and we partner with our local school districts who provide the transportation to the youth to these events in local communities. Many of our communities are very rural, and so they don't have access to some of the supports and services, or they don't feel they do, that would be readily available. And so through that, we do some self-determination and leadership type classes and some more other options that we do resume building, like someone from our, Voc Rehab or our pre-employment transition specialists who actually work through our university here in the state of Missouri, Missouri University. So we'll come together and do some of those things. Also, we disseminate resources. One example is in Kansas City, in the larger populated area, the network actually created a brochure. And on that brochure, it has listed of all the members and the services and supports that they, just contact information primarily is on the brochure. But as you could imagine, there's so many events going on, and a lot of them at the same time, that there's no way that one VR counselor or several VR counselors and maybe one representative from a parent center or some of our volunteers could reach all of them. So what we do is we disseminate that brochure out to anyone who would participate in resource fairs or health fairs or walks and those kinds of things. So we're getting the word out that way. And then just networking opportunities, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's really about building true partnerships at a local level and reaching families where they live, reaching students where they live, and really trying to work in communities to eliminate some of these barriers that youth with disabilities face transitioning from high school to adult life. Next slide. one thing that we have found to be very successful with our Parent Center and our VR in a partnership is we host collaborative workshops together. And the VR counselor will come into our workshop and explain and co-train with our center staff person on employment and employment benefits, or maybe post-secondary options, those types of things. And then really building, when you really get to know somebody and you start to work on a local or even statewide, because we do some statewide work, but when you really start to develop some of those partnerships and working relationships, you learn to get to know each other. You feel comfortable in sharing information and resources with even your families that come to you possibly, or your students that says, hey, contact XYZ at XYZ, and you know they can help you. And so referral, we don't do any type of like formal referral. We don't share parent information or anything, student information on a personal level, but definitely do refer to each other's organizations, and then obviously work together collaboratively to help families navigate some of those services and supports, and students navigate some of those supports and services. Again, I talked just briefly about our information dissemination and what that looks like. For the most part right now, we do have 2 statewide summits that we host on an annual basis. So Rehab is very much a partner in those, doing sessions, breakout sessions for our youth, as well as our professionals, educators, and family members that participate. So resume building, those types of things as well. And they're really talking about employment and secondary education. And then we also have one of our board member. I actually sat on Voc Rehab's board, and then we have a Voc Rehab representative on our MPACT board. So that's some other ways that we partner together. The statewide team, we have something that we call MIT here. It's Missouri Interagency Transition Team. We too host an annual summit or institute. We call it our Transition Training Institutes in the summer. It's really geared towards educators. And now we've really created some great partnerships with other organizations. Our agencies are actually our state Training and Information Center MPACT. We actually do presentations on parent engagement or self-determination and leadership, those types of things. And then also now we are absolutely sharing, word is getting out about our transition networks and how they're really making differences in the lives of youth and families with disabilities, and how those partnerships are working. And so we do have other organizations that are absolutely coming to us saying, please, let's all work together and let's form or create a transition network. So those are just some of the things that are partnerships and those types of things that we do. Next slide. So this is just a few things. We had some VR representatives, but we absolutely have something going in our state today. So our folks couldn't be with us. So VR partnerships with our schools and networks, our RTNs, have really helped us to provide services to our transition students. Typically, we bring all differing skills and services to the table, so the organizations of our annual transition fair goes well. So they're talking about how the school districts and the families partner, and VR partners, we all partner together to provide students some resources and information they need. We have partnered with our local university to provide the space and technology to offer transition fairs to our students. We also, another quote from a VR counselor, is we also ask local employers to contribute their skills to offer beneficial presentations to our students, as well as participating in job shadowing days. So really looking at that employer engagement in those local communities and bringing out employers to actually sit on panels and maybe do mock interviews, those types of things. Next slide, please. It has worked very well, and together we've been able to provide excellent transition services to many students. And then this is from one of our members. Working together with organizations like VR on our RTNs provide a great way for us to serve our transition age youth. We are able to collaborate together to make sure we help provide resources and meet the needs of that region. Next slide. And then I'm going to start questions. So.
Okay, we have 2 more questions that were brought up during the first part. One is directly for Idaho, and then the other, either of the states can talk about. The one question for Idaho is if you have any partnerships with the 4 federally recognized tribes in Idaho.
So we do have collaborative agreements with our tribe members in Idaho. We have some that are the relationship is much stronger than they are in other areas. It is something that we have tried to work on. We actually just recently had our in-service, and we had one of our tribes come and present to our counselors at in-service so we could learn more about the tribal programs rather than the other way around.
Yeah, and as the Parent Center, we don't have anything like that, but we do have, we do quite a bit of work. We're making inroads with our tribal communities, at least in the southeastern part of the state, where I've got a staff person who's made some really good connections there.
And I did do a paid work experience in one of our tribal communities over the summer, and that was the first time for having that type of experience as well. And it was highly well received.
Okay. The other question can be answered by, Jen says, yay, Idaho. The other question, which would be for either of the states, can you talk a little bit about planning process and implementation of the Council on Transition Secondary Ed? Who manages? What is the structure like? What is the planning like, etc.?
Debbie, do you want to take this first?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. So to talk a little bit about that, for our secondary council, the one who really takes the leadership role is our State Department of Education. I will say we had 1 year, it was about 9 months, where we did not have a transition coordinator working for the State Department of Education. So I, from Voc Rehab, kind of took that over because of the fact that I had been the one that kind of led it previous years. But with that, although the State Department takes that lead in it, it's really truly kind of a collaborative group. Each month we have somewhat a different person facilitate the meeting. Each month we ask for agenda items on what the council wants to discuss and talk about, and so it doesn't feel like it's necessarily run, but it is kind of the State Department of Ed does kind of take over that little bit of leadership aspect of kind of getting things going, getting meetings scheduled, things like that.
And as far as the invitations, like who's at the table, the whole council, many times we've reviewed who's here, who needs to be here, who can we invite. So I think that it's a very collaborative process. And some of the other planning that we do with that council is with our assistive technology project, we have an annual youth transition conference called Tools for Life. And so that brings in around about 200 students who are in transition to attend that conference, which is also all the presenters generally are people within the state that have training and information for those youth around all the different topics that they're going to be facing as they hit adulthood.
Great. Well, that's for the questions that we have. If anybody else has one, type now or forever hold your peace. I think that's it.
Okay, well, I really must thank all of you for presenting and for the wonderful questions as well. I think that this really has demonstrated some fantastic ways that we can partner with VR and our parent centers. And really, I believe, I don't know, sets a precedence that, you know, whether you have federal funding or not, it's about the people, it's about the relationships, and about reaching out and connecting the right people. So I really appreciate all of you. As was mentioned, there will be a video recording of this coming out shortly. We will have it captioned, and then it will be sent out and also be on our website along with the PowerPoint presentation. There will be a survey that will be sent out immediately and then resent out next week. Please feel free and leave your comments, ideas. We use that information extensively for planning our next sessions. And thank you to our presenters for presenting and being a part of this and all of your work at the state level. So everyone, I hope you have a wonderful day, and until next time, thank you.